Joining me now is Jay Martin, President and CEO at Cambridge House International. He's also the host of the very popular Jay Martin Show. You get some heavy views on that show. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
Yeah, and you get some big names as well. You were just had some panelists at a panel with Danielle DiMartino Booth, DDB as I like to call her,
Yep.
David Rosenberg, Danielle Park. So, and you've been doing a lot of panels. So overall, what's sort of been the sentiment? What's the sentiment in the mining sector right now?
Yeah, sentiment in the mining sector, I think, has been reflected both on stage and it's been relatively bullish. And you can expect that at a mining conference, right? So that shouldn't be a shocker. But the indicator that does excite me is that 50% of attendees at this event are here for their first time ever at one of our conferences. So those are new investors coming to this sector. What's most striking about that, though, is that you'd expect that in like 2011. When the market's ripping and there's lots of easy money to be made, then you see a surge of new investors come into the sector. But they're coming today, and it's not a ripping market, and there hasn't been any easy money in the last year. You know, last year we saw 30% of our attendees here for the first time ever. This year it's 50%. So something is happening, right? And we're trying to figure it out. I mean, my assumption is that people are experiencing the economy in a new way, whether they're feeling a bit pinched on their paychecks, they're feeling their debt squeeze them a little bit more, they're looking at the geopolitical chessboard become shaken up, and they're just picking up their head and they're looking around and saying, what's going on out there? And a percent of those people end up in the commodity sector, and that's where it puts them. And I think that's where they're coming from. There's so much volatility and chaos in the world that people start looking for answers, and some of those individuals end up looking at hard assets and raw materials as a source of common sense.
Interesting. Now, every conference that you host has its own vibe and sort of a life of its own, and you're sort of hinting at it there. Is that kind of the main theme that you're discovering in this year?
Yeah, that and geopolitics.
Okay.
You know, we're covering geopolitics at this event in a bigger way than ever.
Right.
And our biggest draws, like I don't know if you saw yesterday when Colonel Douglas McGregor walked out on stage. Actually, he hadn't even walked out yet. I was introducing the panel, and as soon as I said his name, the audience just spontaneously erupted in applause. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if he would draw a crowd in Vancouver. You know, he's an American Army general and a voice of military reform. But what he does an excellent job at is pulling apart these complex conflicts, whether it's Europe or the Middle East or the brewing tensions in the South Pacific. He identifies all the stakeholders and then very clearly outlines what their incentives are. What are they there for? You know, Syrian government was just overthrown. Immediately there's 6 countries on the ground. What are they all there for? What are the unique incentives of all these countries? And, you know, the reason he's here is because often at the root of those conflicts, what you'll learn is that it comes down to supply of important things, often natural resources that are still on the ground.
Right.
And so he brought a lot of that, and it was thrilling.
Interesting. Now, we had David Garofalo here the other day, head of Gold Royalty, well known, obviously. He said it literally has been a nuclear winter for about 12 years now for accessing capital for a lot of these explorers. Are you seeing any green shoots from the people you're talking to? Is there anything getting any better?
That's such a great question, you know, and it depends on who you ask, because David has his opinion on that. If you were to ask Rick Rule, he'll tell you this market is overcapitalized, right?
Yeah.
And the evidence that he would point to is that 1 in about 3,000 drill holes become a mine, right? Companies with a drill hole become a mine. So the ratio is not good. So therefore, a lot of companies are getting financed that will never deliver value. Now, look, like we don't have a better way to find the materials we need. So that's how this business is run. At present, we don't have a way around that, right? But I think both things can be true at once. I personally feel like this climate is just perfect, right? The investors that are here are having serious conversations. They're grilling the CEOs in a positive way, asking things like, how many shares do you own? Those are intelligent questions that investors weren't asking at the peak of the last market in 2011. They were showing up with a pocket full of stock tips and just gambling.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah. You're throw money there.
100%.
Yeah.
So I like, if it's a bit more reserved, if there's less cash available, all that means is these companies have to be more competitive, and that's a good thing, right? So sharpen up, clean up the G&A, right? Like prove value, and you'll get the cash for sure.
Yeah. And just lastly, Jay, you talk to a lot of people, you interview people, you read a lot. Do you have a general feeling for 25 and how it's going to? And we have Trump just inaugurated today as well. You know how that plays into it too.
Yeah, I think politics is going to play a huge role this year. There's been a shift, right? And Justin Trudeau is the last leader of a G7 country still standing since the first Trump election. And he just resigned, right? We're seeing these big shifts in every Western economy. I think the Trump impact we'll have to wait and see. Like when he was elected in 2016, I picked up his book, The Art of the Deal. It was written in 1987 because I wanted to understand who this guy was. I didn't really know him outside of The Apprentice back in 2015, 16, right? He would describe his negotiating strategy like this. He says, you walk in the boardroom, you want to say something crazy right away. Throw everybody off balance, but then you have their full attention. And when you slide in your real demand, it's so moderate relative to where you started that you end up getting everything you want, right? And I think it's safe to say that he still operates that way today. It works very well for him. And a lot of the campaign promises, like on day one, his words, I'll put a 25% tariff on Canada. Today's day one, what did he say? We're going to study it. We're going to study it before we decide what to do, right? So I think it's very on brand. He wants to get your attention. He wants to throw you off balance, and then he'll come in with the real strategy. It's going to take a strong leader in Canada to balance that out, right? And I think we have the right candidate running, but Canada's got to make a decision here. So I think it's a very consequential year.
All right, great stuff, Jay. Thanks for the insight.
Appreciate it, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you. Jay Martin, he is the president and CEO at Cambridge House International.